Good afternoon, Greenford district. We hope you've had a really good 2 nights camping in your tents. It's now time to take them down. We're going to show you step by step of how to get them back in the bags. This could be the hardest bit at camp. Sometimes when you're tired and you haven't got any energy to put your tent away, this is the most important part. Your tent could be used and used again, so if you look after it and put it back in the bag properly, you can use it again for the next camp. So, step 1, make sure all of your kit is taken out of the tent and packed away properly. Okay, so I need to take the air out of my roll mat. You roll from the bottom away from the valve to the end, you'll get all the air out. It should now fit back in the bag. It's now time to put our sleeping bag away. My sleeping bag has a bag built in. Some sleeping bags come with loose bags. So, here's the bag attached to the bottom of my single sleeping bag. You need to push your sleeping bag one by one, stuffing it in so it all fits in. You might need a parent to help you. This can be the trickiest bit. There's my sleeping bag packed away, nice and neat for next time. Now we get to take this down. Firstly, make sure there's no rubbish left inside your tent. Anything left, like sweets or sweet wrappers, can make your tent smell for the next time you use it. So make sure it's properly cleared out before we take it down. Next, you need to make sure all the doors are closed. This makes it much easier when we come to roll it back up. It fits in the bag so much better. Next, find those bags that I told you to store away in a safe place so don't lose them. These. We need to get all of our kit safely back in these. Next step is to take off the guy lines. Take the pegs out of the ground and put them back in the bag so we don't lose them. If you can, fold these up neatly. There's one on the other side. With my guy lines out, it's now time to take off the red outer of my tent. This means we need to collect more pegs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Remember a couple of days back when I tied this on? This is still stuck on, so we can't just pull it off. So we need to go and undo those ties. This is now good to come off. We need to take the pegs out and the poles, remembering to unclip those little pieces we put on the poles. Now I know that all the pegs are out my tent, I can tie the bag up. Safe for next time. The next bit is taking the poles out. It's extremely important that you don't pull on these. It's best to push these from one end through. Do you remember those little pieces of elastic between the poles? If you pull on your tent pole whilst you're trying to pull it out of your tent, it can really damage your tent for the next use. So, I'm going to take my poles out, but push them through my seams. There's one. There's 2. Notice how when I'm taking my tent down, I'm not stepping on the tent at any point. Again, this can damage our tents. We want to look after them so they last a long time. Being so small, this tent only has 2 poles. I'm extremely lucky. And they're a cool colour. Again, let's pop them back in the bag. Again, safe for next time. So the last bit, which is probably the hardest bit, especially for those cubs and beavers, is to fold your tent up. Scouts, explorers, they expect you to be able to do this yourself. Again, if a scout or explorer has decided to sleep out in a hammock, you've probably got an easier job than taking a tent down. So, again, to get my tent back in the bag, I need to consider how big the bag is. If we roll it into a ginormous shape, it's not going to go into this tiny little bag. So, each tent is different, but I know that I need to fold my tent in 3, the outside of my tent in 3, and the inside of my tent in 2 to get it back in the bag. The best way you can gauge this is by looking at how long your poles are. If the folded canvas that you've made is longer than your poles, it's probably not going to fit in your bag. It's about right. Notice how I've made 2 long sausage shapes. I'm now going to lay these on top of each other and roll everything together. Before we roll, I must warn you that if you put your tent away wet, it is going to rot and start to smell. If it had been raining all weekend or raining before you put your tent down, or even if you've got dew on your tent in the morning or condensation, it's best to leave this to dry out the best you can before you put your tent away. Okay, so we've made our 2 sausage shapes. We've put our pegs and poles away. We now need to roll our tent so it fits back in our bag for next time. So, I've laid the 2 on top of each other. Poles and pegs can go inside your canvas. Start at one end. And roll. You need to keep this as tight as possible. If you don't, it won't fit in your bag. Make sure that anything sticking out, like guy lines or zips, are poked in. Like that. Some tents have a little bit of rope or string to keep them rolled up. Let's make use of that. Now we can put it back in our bag. Like stuffing a sleeping bag, it's really important that you don't give up. Some tent bags are very, very small. This one, luckily, it's just big enough. Good enough for next time. Well done guys, that's us done. That's us finished striking our tents. I'm really impressed if you guys slept out for 2 nights. Well, I hope you really enjoyed it. Last thing we need to do today is you guys need to prep your uniform for closing ceremony. We'll see you there. Thanks.